Hi, my name is Ian Alexander, and with me today are three gentlemen in three different locations. Donald Hunt is Director of Music at Church Cathedral. Thomas Chase is Chair of the Organ Renewal Campaign Committee here at the Cathedral. And Stephen Sinclair, who you see is coming to us from the organ loft of the Cathedral, is Vice President of Juge Sinclair, Organ Builders and Restorers. We're here to talk about the year of the organ at Church Cathedral. It's been designated as that because we have a goal, an ambitious one, which is to raise $150,000 in order to undertake a comprehensive renewal project of this magnificent instrument, this Helmut Wolff organ that was installed in the cathedral 20 years ago. We're going to restore it to as good or better condition than when it first sounded. Aren't we, Steve?
Yes, we are.
And we want to find out a little bit about how that's going to happen and why it's going to happen. But for starters, um, as a longtime proprietor of an organ building as well as restoration firm, you've seen a lot of organs. How does this one compare? Where would it stack up in your kind of ranking?
It's an excellent instrument musically, and that is largely due to the fact that Helmut was quite aware of the trends in organ building style. And you might think that style is not involved in organ building, but it very much is. It changes over time. And what we found is that the thing that that makes an organ come to the end of its life is more often than not a change in style, that an organ is built in a style that is too short-lived and does not have the entire repertoire in mind, and is not, sometimes you find that 20, 30 years after it's installed, it no longer fulfills the role appropriately. So stylistic considerations are quite separate from mechanical considerations.
And that's not the case with this instrument. Its style is evergreen, so it's a mechanical putting it back into shape a challenge. Is that fair to say?
Yes, there is work on pipe work to do that has to do with the ravages of time, but there's nothing to do on the pipe work that is because he got that wrong. He didn't make any mistake that we can see in misreading what the musical needs of the cathedral would be.
Is it usual to have to do this much work on an instrument after a couple of decades?
It really varies. It really varies from instrument to instrument, and the thing is that each organ is completely individual. Companies don't generally mass produce organs that are all identical, so that you could say this builder, we know they'll have problems here. It varies from instrument to instrument. It's some instruments mechanically have fared better than this one, but it's not unusual. And I think the important thing is to know that musically it holds up completely, and so that makes that mechanical work valid,
It's an
justifiable.
investment worth making, is what I hear you say.
It's an investment worth making. Yeah.
Great. I wonder, one of the wonderful things about being in the organ loft is that one is actually inside of the instrument, and you're sort of in front of the main pipework right now. Can you pick up your phone and walk around the instrument a little bit? And as you're doing so, maybe just tell us a bit more about some of the major pieces of work that you will be doing once this project gets underway.
Okay. So we are behind. I have the positif division. There are four divisions, five divisions on this organ, including pedal, um, and the positif is here. I've already done yesterday some action adjustment on the positif. Um,
The
They're
console still open there, Steve, with the pedals off. Because I was with Steve this morning, and we had no pedals, and the console was completely taken apart. So that's interesting to see.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Pedals are gone.
it, um, other work I did was to repair a leak in this. This is coupler action, and you can see the coupler action underneath. There was a leak in this bellows, which I was able to remove and repair, and so it's good to go. Um,
So it's already getting better. And you
it is
haven't
already
really
getting
even
better.
started the main project.
Well, part of this, the reason for this trip is to fix the small problems that will be an annoyance until we get to the bigger work. And part of it is to scope out more precisely what we need to do in the next phases of work, and to do some general upkeep that's needed, because we understand that there's a difficulty in finding service people to do it, good service people to do it. So
There was a time when there were people resident on Vancouver Island or certainly on the West Coast, but that's no longer the case, is my understanding. You were as you were walking around. I mean, we have this high cases with pipes inside them, but
mhm.
underneath that, where you're standing, what you're standing on is actually a floor below which are all of the pieces of wood that connect the console to the pipes. Is
Sure.
that right? So are you
Yes,
going to
I
have
can
to
actually.
lift all that stuff up to get at it, get at the works?
Some of it I can show you some. I'll put the phone down so I don't do anything ill-advised, but I can open up.
So those pieces of wood that we're about to see are called the trackers, and that's what connects the playing action to the pipes.
There they are. There they are.
So when I play a key, there's a tracker here that pulls. So
Got
it's
it.
all mechanical. The linkages are all mechanical.
Now, one other question before we move on to some other aspects of this conversation. Thank you for this. This is a fascinating tour of the inside of the instrument. Now, as you say, it's an entirely mechanical action instrument, Steve. There are some electronics that assist the organist in changing the voicing and the stops and the registration, are there not?
Yes, it's not an entirely, when instruments get to a certain size, very often, in modern times, we like to keep it playable at the keyboard. And so they'll offset some of the larger basses that have high wind consumption to electric chests. And these have been somewhat problematic in this organ. And we have a very good solution for that one we use regularly in our own work. So in a way, we're very well placed to be working on this organ. I worked for 9 years for Helmut Wolff. It's where I got my start, before joining Denis Juget with our own company. So a lot of the solutions that we have are, we'd like to say, refinements of what Helmut did. But that's a good example. The firing mechanism that we use to fire electric offset basses is pressure switches, although we have our own design now, which we've been using for a while and are completely reliable. So some of that work was done in reaction to the difficulties Helmut was having with some of these larger instruments that required this sort of approach.
Thanks. Make yourself comfortable in the loft there. We're going to just have a word from Donald and from Tom as well. So Donald, you've been at the cathedral now for a number of years. You've played organs in England and in North America. Did you have to sort of make some adjustments to come to know and love this instrument? Does it have its idiosyncrasies?
Of course, yeah. I mean, as Steve was saying before, all organs are completely different. All organs have a unique personality, both musical personality and just sitting down with them. And how are you going to find your way around this instrument? Because the organ console you saw there is a little bit like an airplane console. There are so many buttons and there are so many keys and there are pedals, um, and and it's not like we have A380, and I know how to fly an A380. Every organ is absolutely different, and of course, every console is completely different as well. Um, So yeah, sitting down at the Wolf, sure, it takes adjustment, having played different instruments, but I would say no more than coming to any other new post where you're playing another instrument. So, in a sense, what we're doing here, we're not trying to change the instrument to suit our playing needs. We adjust as organists to kind of suit the instrument, and that's fine. Of course, there are little tweaks here and there that we've been exploring with Mark McDonald, who does the bulk of the playing, and with Steve to see what might be possible, just to make things a little bit easier for the player. But by and large, what Helmet has done is very good.
Can you name something that you particularly love about this instrument and maybe something that's been a kind of a bugbear or a challenge for you over the years?
Something I love. I mean, I love there are stops that I just think sing so musically and so beautifully. The quintadena on the solo stop, for instance, it's kind of it's a very sort of resonant, almost reedy, hollow sound that is used to great effect as a solo stop in the music of Bach and other music. We use it often in Anglican chant. So there are all of these beautiful colors. And there are many, many more I could talk about. And like a painter's palette, we're able to bring them together to create such beautiful different combinations. Really the musical um, the musical nuances are endless with the palette that Helmet has given us. On the other hand, some frustrations, and this is again, as Steve alluded to, partly due to time and just partly due to there are better designs that could have been come up with, but there are certain notes on the organ that just don't play anymore. And they're because they're set off on offset switches, and the motors just don't fire anymore. And so we need to find a better way of placing those motors so that we can maintain them properly. As well, people in the congregation often say to me, "What's that big thump sound when you press general cancel or when you press a combination stop?" And I think that is again partly due to time, partly due to design, but I'm excited to have that work done so that when Mark or I selects a registration, it's completely seamless.
Great. Lots to look forward to.
Hmm.
Tom, how's the fundraising campaign going? I said it's an ambitious target.
It is indeed an ambitious target, but we're off to a very, very good start, Ian. We're now above $50,000, a third of the way toward the $150,000 goal. So we're pretty confident that we will be able to meet that goal and engage in this work. We're very pleased with the start. Part of it got to I think, an accelerated beginning with a wonderful concert on the 4th of January by Donald and Mark, the Nutcracker Suite, with an absolutely packed cathedral. People that day were very generous, and we're hopeful and trusting that people will continue to be generous and contribute to this wonderful project.
So we said this is the year of the organ at Christ Church Cathedral, and I guess the sources of the funds are tickets or donations to coming to events, and then also people who are simply wanting to give to the project. Is that right?
Absolutely. In restoring organs, typically you see some fairly large and very generous gifts, and then you see many, many smaller, more modest gifts. They're all equally welcome, all equally needed, and we're looking forward to a very, very successful campaign.
In just a moment, I'm going to give you a chance to tell people how they can also make a contribution if they'd like to. But perhaps before we do that, between you, Tom, and you, Donald, we can talk a little bit about what else is coming up in terms of the year of the organ. Do you want to kick that off,
Well,
Donald?
yeah, sure. This is not many of you will be able to buy a ticket to this, so please pay attention. Our assistant director of music, Mark McDonald, will be giving a late night organ tour on Saturday, April 26th. Tickets are available for that on Eventbrite. So if you've always wanted a chance to kind of get up and close to where the organ is being played, you can climb the 50 or so stairs up and check that out. So tickets on Eventbrite. In May, at the end of May, I'm giving a concert, a Friday lunchtime concert. I'll be playing some French romantic music. And in June, we have the second annual Beer and Hymns. So, I mean, so much of what our organ does is accompanying hymns in Anglican worship. And this is an opportunity for us to take our cassocks off and let our hair down if we happen to have any, have a drink and just sing some of our best loved hymns. So those are kind of a few things that are coming up. I also I don't want to kind of start to steer the conversation. That's your job, Ian. But we've got a great opportunity here while Steve's in the organ loft. I don't know if you noticed, but Steve went around the back and there's a ladder and that goes up. I wonder if Steve might be willing to take us up while Ian sort of asks someone else another question, because there's
That
plenty to see in there.
that would be great. Steve, you head out, and Donald, I'll just follow up on the meantime in terms of events and the year of the organ, because we've kind of decided to extend the year into February 2026. And I mention that because the symphony is going to come to the cathedral for a pair of concerts using the organ. And I mention that because, yes, it accompanies hymn singing and is played in the context of liturgy, but this instrument is a community asset too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And nothing demonstrates that more than the concert on January 4th with the Nutcracker. We had like 800, 900 people. It was standing room only. And not just that. There was a buzz of excitement about this instrument from people who I had never seen come in the cathedral before. I mean, these crowds were not our parishioners. Many of our parishioners were, of course, there, and we're so glad that they came to support it too. But it was just swelled by this community of support. People who are curious about the instruments, who had never heard it played before.
That's great. So, Steve, if you can still hear us, and please be careful. Where are you now?
I'm up on sort of at impost level of the organ. You can see behind me the facade pipes. These pipes right here are facade pipes that you see. Those are the ones you see from down in the nave.
Yes.
And then behind that, you can see all the pipe work that actually makes all the variety of sounds of an organ.
Yeah, sometimes people think that the pipes they can see are the that's
only ones.
yeah.
Right? That's
It's
far
the tip
from
of
the
the
truth.
iceberg. How many pipes are there again? Remind me.
Oh, I don't know. That's always a question that
People want to know.
About
It's
4,000.
over
No, and the organ
4,000
builders always
pipes,
forget.
ranging from 16 feet in length to about an inch in length, well over 4,000.
Thank
So
you.
Steve, will you be taking these all out and cleaning them and putting them back in again? Is that part of this?
Not all of them, only as necessary. The organ isn't terribly dusty. Organs do require cleaning, but it depends largely on the amount of dust, and there's not a huge amount here. We'll be cleaning. These are reed stops right here. So reeds, there are two types of pipes, reeds and flues. All the rest is flue work, and at the very back of the chest are these reeds, and they're more susceptible to dust in them. So I'll be cleaning some of them today. What happens is a little speck of dust gets in and has to be cleaned out, or the pipe won't speak.
Because the reeds have a sort of vibrating lip or something, don't they, on them?
They have a tongue like an oboe.
A tongue, yeah.
Yeah, and it vibrates, so it's very easy for this, particularly in the trebles, for a small speck of dust to get in there, and that stops it from speaking. But it's a very simple matter to clean that out. So I'll be doing a little bit of that today, just getting the ones that aren't speaking at all speaking again.
Steve, I wonder, could you comment perhaps on the fact that the music program at Christ Church Cathedral in Victoria is one of the most active cathedral music programs in the country? Donald's alluded to some of the things that are coming up, but we estimate that the organ has been used over the past 20 years for several thousand worship events, several thousand rehearsals, several hundred concerts, and probably several tens of thousands of hours of individual practice by people like Donald and Mark at the cathedral, and also, of course, very distinguished visiting artists. Given the amount of use that instrument has seen, How would you characterize its state today? And what can we look forward to once the work that you contemplate is finished? Another 20, 25, 30, 40 years of fine use.
Yeah, and there are problems. Our experience is that the problems in an organ can come in waves. That sounds negative, but I just mean there can be initial problems that only are spit out within the first year or two of an organ being installed, and that's where you see what the humidity cycle in its actual situation, what problems it will pick up, and so those are dealt with, and then typically the next 10 or 20 years are can be, well, after that, it depends on whether they got all the details right in their first try or not. But other problems can come up, problems of wear can then come up. And there's some of that here. You asked about pipe removal, and downstairs, maybe you saw there's a division that is below the level I'm at here. It's the swell division. And we'll have to take out all that pipe work to get access to noisy stop action above, that's only accessible through the ceiling of that division. So that's a problem that's an exact example of something that he didn't get right. We're confident that our repair there will not require service just every 20 years. It's a wear issue, but it depends on the materials you select. It depends on the techniques you select. So there are really very few wear issues that have to be looked at every 20 years. Normally, once it's really working, it's working for once once the techniques have been applied in a way that is as good as it can be, it should be good for a long time.
And these monumental cathedral organs have lifetimes that are often measured not just in decades, but even in centuries.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
What's really interesting to us that we've seen through our career is that the thing that kills organ is change in fashion. And when an organ is well loved by the community, some resources are applied to making sure it can be as good as it can be, and then it is they're saved. We see it again and again.
That's very encouraging and exciting news, Stephen. Thank you for telling us about the project. I'm just thinking as we move towards a close here, it must be very special for you to be standing in the middle of one of Helmut's largest magnumist opuses, given your association with him early in your career. That must be a very special feeling to be working on this instrument.
Yeah, and it feels, we also know Mark from Montreal, from his time in Montreal, and we know Donald. It's also a sort of organ community involvement thing. Sometimes we have a lot of work building new organs, and sometimes the temptation for us is to just stick to that. But what pulls us in to do work like this is a little bit of a feeling of responsibility for the community in general. So we like to see organs, good organs in general, be well kept up, and so that's why we're here.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for coming and doing some touch-ups, and we look forward to having you on site in the not too distant future for the main project. Thomas, I promised that I would remind people that in terms of the events that Donald has mentioned, they can go on the Cathedral website and find out how to go to those, either by donation or go on Eventbrite and buy a ticket. What about people who might be moved to make a donation? How should they proceed with that?
If people are interested in making a donation, they're very welcome to reach out to any of us or directly to the Cathedral Office. There are a variety of ways of doing so, by check, by credit card. There are all kinds of avenues. We've just produced a pamphlet which outlines these methods of payment in writing. And if anyone would like to get in touch with us for a copy of that pamphlet containing those directions, we'll certainly have one to them very, very rapidly. But again, we welcome all donations, no matter the size. We welcome donations that might be spread out over several years, several tax years, to maximize the person's tax relief. But again, this is a project that I think everyone watching the video can see is highly worthy, and we will do everything we can to work with donors to ensure that it is accomplished.
Thomas Chase, Donald Hunt, Stephen Sinclair, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.